CyberTech Worlds Clash. Chapter 15. Shady. Ashe glared around the filth-infested pub with the two CyberTech security men she brought in with her. She could see this was most certainly where all of the shady people in Hogsmeade had been hiding out. If there was one thing she hated, and that was shady people like them. They could be so creepy and shady. They would draw less attention if they uncovered their faces and hung out in that nice bar called the Three Broomsticks where Madame Rosemeter, the owner, would sell nice drinks in fresh and spotless glasses. However, she looked at this place. The glasses looked like health hazards, and don't come in if you have hay fever or you'll sneeze your poor lungs out. She was quick to gesture one of the men as she walked to the bar, and he made the call for the rest of the squad to enter, and enter they did with guns at the ready. The shady customers were already shifting uncomfortably, but they just got worse, but never moved out of fear, as she reached the old man behind the bar. The barman had a white tangled beard and hair, wearing filthy brown robes. If it wasn't for Rosemeter's place, I would say none of you magic guys knows how to clean. She spoke in annoyance as she passed the confused, but otherwise nonchalant old man an envelope. That, she began, is an order for health and safety code violations. If you do not meet the minimum standard within 7 days, you will be shut down. What? He cried out as he opened the letter, and she watched as he read it over. Why, you can't do this. Albus would never let that happen, he said, but she knew that he knew that Albus Dumbledore wasn't around anymore, even if he didn't yet know the particulars. Well, he's in jail now for his own crimes too numerous to waste my time listing, she retorted, shocking him, as she finally clued him in. Lieutenant Mars, I believe you also have something to say. Oh yes, he agreed with a smirk. The blonde man stepped forward. Mr. Albus Dumbledore, you are under arrest for potentially harboring fugitives, and/or terrorist. We have been looking for quite a few uncooperative persons who may be here, he said as he gestured carelessly around the bar. One person dressed in a black veil and dress suddenly got to their feet, about to attempt running, when Ashe swiped her right fist in his direction and a blue flame shot from her, smashing his table to pieces. Sit down, she hissed without looking away from Albus. The weird man in the dress was quick to reclaim his seat, and Ashe was not surprised the wood was so bad that even fire didn't want to eat it, as her nibbling flames went out. In that moment the security forces had also moved, and within only a minute every patron within the pub was down and in cuffs with the disguises removed. She had to say, if only in her head, some of them should have been left on. Mr. Dumbledore, if you will come quietly. Mars spoke nonchalant as he with Ashe were the only two not to move, and Albus did not want to anger the Hellfire girl. If you don't make a fuss, I'm sure we may be able to make a deal where you'll get off with just a fine. If you understand where I'm going with this. Albus nodded with a sigh as he walked out from behind his bar and let Mars cuff him and take his wand. It wasn't like he could do anything if his brother was taken in. Well, it was only a matter of time until his brother's arrogance and stupidity got him into trouble. Anyway, all he had to do was give evidence against a bunch of douchebags and he would get off with a fine. Plus, he might get to see his brother in jail and gloat a little before he was done grassing on his shady patrons. CyberTech, CyberTech, CyberTech. Minerva McGonagall was still surprised looking around the school at all the new and different things getting done by the builders. Though, they kept out of the school's way, but she didn't think she could ever get used to having her new classroom so far away compared to where it was. However, she felt thankful as she sat at the teacher's table in the Great Hall after fetching her food that the new classroom was only temporarily when she would get a nearer classroom. In addition, having filled not one but 2 job positions out of her interview with Miss Greengrass, she realized the day was going very well. She even had the potential for a new dorm mother dating her new teacher, so she would be ready at the school. Though, she was pretty sure Miss Davis and Miss Greengrass were only dating so Miss Davis could stay protected under the new barrier system in the castle. Minerva wasn't going to complain or say anything. McGonagall was thankful she was allowed to continue on as Gryffindor's head of house after the day her world was taken over, in a good way. Also, only divination had been removed from the school curriculum, as it seemed a waste of bother. In addition, when she was in negotiations with her contract, she hadn't had to even try to get a pay rise. She was given a rise in pay that amounted to 8 times what she originally got, because she was deputy and transfiguration teacher. She had gotten more than most, plus health care and pension benefits that made her chin drop to the floor in shock. Minerva was skeptical that the school needed extra Muggle classes at first, but having had to read the students' handwriting and spelling for the past 30 years, she could only reluctantly agree that English lessons would be helpful, and since most of the magic they studied was in Latin, the new head teacher added that to the curriculum. However, she at least thought that the students' parents would teach their children the basics of maths and other things they may need, but she realized on further study that her own maths was atrocious. She had even tested some students in math and realized to her horror they were all pretty crappy at that, and then giving the students a fitness test made her also agree that the students also needed PE classes. Minerva sighed as she began her pie and potatoes in the Great Hall during dinner when Cordelia sat next to her. The throne Dumbledore used to sit in, lauding his superiority over the school, was gone for a normal seat so she could be equal. "Good afternoon, Minerva," the headmistress chimed as Ashe arrived with her meal, sitting down next to Cordelia and digging in with vigor. "Good afternoon, Cordelia," she responded with a tiny smile. "Afternoon, Miss Caddis." Ashe looked up from her pie and chips, smiling. "Hey," she responded before re-engaging with her war to get her food in her mouth. Cordelia laughed while rolling her eyes. "Don't try to get any decent conversation from her while she's eating," she told her jokingly in amusement. "Where have you been all morning anyway?" she asked, turning to Ashe out of curiosity. Ashe paused her munching and swallowed the lovely meal those weird little elf guys made and smiled. "I was helping out with security forces for fun," she said happily. "We arrested some very shady customers at this very shady pub called the Hogshead. Then, we arrested this very shady bar owner, who just so happens to be Albus Dumbledore, the very shady, Albus Dumbledore's younger, and very shady brother. It was fun." "Oh. Well, next time tell me," Cordelia pouted. "Arresting very shady people in a very shady place sounds like it could be exceptionally shady fun," she said with a wide grin. Minerva held in a very shady groan. "CyberTech, CyberTech, CyberTech." In an advanced-looking control room on the bridge of a high-tech airship flying above the clouds of New York City, stood a black man with an eye patch over his left eye with bald head. He wore a black uniform underneath a long black leather coat. Around the bridge were large windows looking out at the clouds. Staff worked at the many controls wearing deep blue uniforms while the black man glared down at a red-haired man in similar uniform as he was on his knees being held down by 2 armed men in black. So, Magneto was after information on the crater. He demanded of the man, tempted to kick him a little, but he was already well and truly scared. He'd even messed himself. "Why yes sir," he answered shakily. "Sir." A woman at a front control panel gained his attention. "Pietro Magnus has recently been transferred to the crater due to overcrowding." The eye-patched man turned back to the traitor with fury in his one dark eye. "That's all we need," he growled out with a sneer at the man before regaining his composure and turning away. "Take that bastard off of my bridge and put him in lockdown." "Yes sir," the 2 military men declared before dragging the man off the bridge where he may end up spending life in prison. The man, Coronel Nick Fury, the commander of S.H.I.E.L.D., took his seat on the control chair, slumping with a tired sigh. "Alert the crater to the possibility of an attack by criminal organization, the Brotherhood of Mutants." "Yes sir," the same young woman replied. "They may need assistance in preventing them from breaking through security. If he has Juggernaut with him or Avalanche, or worse both, it won't be possible to stop them without help." Fury nodded sagely. "Contact Stark and tell him I need to speak with him and his team ASAP." She nodded, and a few moments later a young man with short black hair in his mid to late 20s appeared on the holographic view screen with a goatee neatly trimmed around his mouth, and an arrogant smirk. "Wow Fury, The man laughed. You called to congratulate me and my team on being awesome, he asked jokingly, as the eye patch guy watched in annoyance as a huge green thing only wearing purple shorts. The Hulk was in the background arguing stupidly with a long-haired blonde blue-eyed man with metal war hammer in his belt, wearing Viking-like clothing with large red cape, in contrast to Stark's crisp black silk suit. Hardly, he hissed out in annoyance. I have some news, he spoke straight to the point. The mutant Magneto may have plans to break his son out of the crater. I shall be sending the needed information. Stark grimaced but looked more serious now as he nodded. Okay. But I still don't get why Avalon finished that place, and now CyberTech is running it. Sure. It frees up space but still. It's a little suspicious. I've been hearing rumors that it was not only built for metahumans and mutants, but it was upgraded for sorcerers too. Fury nodded his head. Yes. I've also heard these rumors. However, they're not rumors, as the president himself has been informed by the British Prime Minister of sorcerer terrorists that call themselves Death Eaters. They believe they're a superior species of human and like to put on a show, if you get my meaning. Yeah, some of Magneto's lot are like that too with mutants, Stark agreed coolly. I don't get why we can't get along. Supremacist all over the place, including from non-powered humans, he said, trailing to a stop before shaking that off. Anyway, why not tell us before now? He demanded suddenly. I have only just found out. Yesterday in fact. You know how long it takes some of these people to trickle down this stuff, he responded tiredly. I shall be sending a report on the matter as we may have to deal with cleaning house. Though, the president has accepted CyberTech's offer of assistance with US domestic mage terrorists, but MACUSA, the US magical government is being rather cooperative as we're all making concessions to try and not let this devolve into war. The terrorists' main points of call seem to be around their leader, Voldemort, in the UK. Then CyberTech must have some way of fighting them, Stark muttered before speaking louder. But then, Harry was lying to me when he caught my attempted hack. You were trying to hack his satellite systems, reprimanded a man in red, white and blue with short blonde hair as he stepped into frame. It's no wonder he didn't want to tell you anything. After all, how trusting would you be if he tried to hack you? Okay, he replied with a sigh, rubbing his eyes. But we're going to the UK. We cannot let any more prisoners escape another super prison, and they could potentially have magical terrorists locked in that nobody wants let out either. I agree with my well-dressed friend, the blonde Viking interrupted. We must stop these fiends before innocent people are harmed. Hulk smash, roared the green giant, punching his right fist into left hand. A brown-haired young woman wearing yellow and black strips flew before the screen with bug-like wings at about 7 or 8 inches tall. We'll get to it and put a stop to Magneto and his men if we can. You can count on us, she said. After all, we are the Avengers, she added proudly. Colonel Nick Fury sighed. Sometimes he wondered about them and their sanity, or lack thereof. Though, he didn't mention it as S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers were always on rocky grounds.